And I recognize the member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, and I'm very pleased to rise this afternoon as Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Economic Development and Growth, and I would like to thank the Minister for his remarks introducing the second reading of this important piece of legislation. And, Mr. Speaker, if you would indulge me in allowing me to take this opportunity as well to thank the Minister for his years of hard work and guidance on this file. Thank you, Minister, for taking on this challenge and this responsibility in ensuring that we're reducing red tape for businesses right across Ontario. And congratulations on the Golden Scissors Award. The Minister laid out a very clear case for why burden reduction efforts are essential to keep our economy competitive and open for business. As well, he also described in detail the context that this bill was conceived within and how it furthers the tremendous work this government has done on the file. I want to thank the House for this opportunity to go into more detail about the proposed Cutting Unnecessary Red Tape Act 2017. I know from the Minister, from my constituents in Davenport, and from my own career in the private sector that businesses want a modern, streamlined and efficient regulatory system. Ontario's economy is going through a period of generational renewal and modernization. Our traditional sectors are converging with transformative technologies, and we must maintain our competitive edge. The Business Growth Initiative is our strategy to accelerate knowledge-based innovation economy and increase the province's global competitiveness. This 5-year, $650 million initiative is guided by the following principles: creating a strong, innovative-driven economy through the development and deployment of advanced technology, catapulting more Ontario businesses forward through scaling up, and lowering business costs through modernized regulations. As you can see, Mr. Speaker, cutting red tape is a core pillar of our plan. With this in mind, the Ministry of Economic Development and Growth has introduced a package of legislative amendments that are intended to reduce regulatory burdens and practices that cost businesses time and money, while protecting environmental, health and worker safety standards while achieving cost savings for our business community. The Ministry worked with 5 partner ministries and is proposing amendments to more than 40 different statutes. Highlights of the proposed Cutting Unnecessary Red Tape Act 2017 include implementing a number of recommendations from the Business Law Advisory Council to update and reform Ontario's corporate and commercial law statutes, facilitating electronic delivery service delivery and taking steps to enable proclamation of the Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, enabling automatic electronic service delivery and issuance of pesticide licenses if prescribed requirements are met. I should note that the Ministry consulted with a number of stakeholders in the development of this bill, and we have received a positive response that I would like to share for the record. And I'm going to quote Richard Corosil, the interim president and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and he said, quote, "The Ontario Chamber of Commerce, OCC, is pleased to see the Ontario government prioritize the reduction of regulatory burdens faced by Ontario businesses, building on the success of the Red Tape Challenge. This legislation demonstrates a commitment to the continued competitiveness and prosperity of our province. We appreciate the ongoing partnership between government and the OCC as we continue to advocate for a reduction in red tape to spur economic growth and development across Ontario." End of quote. It is clear from Mr. Corosil's response that efforts to reduce unnecessary red tape and undue regulatory burden are critically important to the province's business community. It is an issue that my own constituents have often brought to my attention. It is essential to remember what lies at the heart of this bill. It is about ensuring we have a competitive business environment so that companies invest here in Ontario and create and support the jobs of today and tomorrow. That is what really matters to the people of our province, Mr. Speaker. When we shed overly cumbersome or unnecessary burdens, we are opening the door for more opportunity for the businesses in our province. Of course, as the minister mentioned, we know that some regulations are necessary. We are undertaking the streamlining and rationalizing the regulations, keeping in mind that we must also protect the environment and health standards and enhance worker and consumer safety. We have taken a holistic approach across our ministry and the partner ministries to make sure we are safeguarding necessary regulations. Our approach has never been geared toward deregulation. This government strongly believes in the role of regulation to protect community, the public, workers, and the environment. It is also true that strong regulation can be good economic policy as well. For example, our agricultural products are in high demand in other parts of the world because of their unparalleled quality and our regulatory system that ensures the highest standards in food safety. We firmly believe that the government can reduce the cost of regulation to businesses while maintaining the strong standards that support our quality of life here in the province. To that end, this is the second bill the government has brought forward as part of its commitment to make annual legislative changes that reduce direct and indirect regulatory burden on Ontario businesses. You'll remember that the first annual bill, the Burden Reduction Act 2017, was passed in March 2017. That act amended more than 50 statutes from 11 ministries, different ministries, to reduce regulatory burdens and practices that cost businesses time and money, while protecting environmental and health standards and enhancing worker safety. The amendments will provide Ontario businesses up to $31.5 million in savings per year. As I said, this bill had input from 5 partner ministries and is proposing amendments to more than 40 different statutes. I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight some of the burden reduction that will occur across our ministry and our partner ministries should the proposed Cutting Unnecessary Red Tape Act 2017 be passed. Schedule 4 of the bill, if passed, would introduce a brand new act called the Reducing Regulatory Costs for Business Act, which contains the 5 new burden initiatives that the minister mentioned. To quickly summarize, this act, if passed, will place a requirement for government to offset new administrative costs imposed on business through a reduction in existing costs. Mandate a less onerous compliance framework for small businesses where appropriate. Increase harmonization with other jurisdictions and encourage the adoption of international or national standards where appropriate when developing or reviewing regulations. Mandate that businesses must have an option to submit documents electronically to the government. And 5th, recognize businesses that have a good compliance record. These 5 initiatives guided the design of the overall bill. They support the Business Growth Initiative by modernizing government lines of business, removing unnecessary regulatory burden, and reforming Ontario's business laws. These are changes that will help businesses large and small to prosper in our business. Of course, the question of just exactly how much money will be saved by implementing the changes must be addressed. I'm happy to say the estimated cost savings were quantified for 4 of the 5 proposals above that impacted discrete sectors. It is estimated that businesses impacted by these proposals can realize between $6.3 million to $8.9 million in cost savings. As I mentioned, this bill is not just the product of the work done by the Ministry of Economic Development and Growth. In order to make real change, we had to coordinate with other ministries, and the results, as you will see, are impressive. Here is a short synopsis of the changes that our partner ministries will make. The Ministry of the Attorney General's proposed changes include amendments to the Charities Accounting Act that would allow charities to make social investments that help further their purpose and achieve a financial return. The amendments will allow charitable organizations to make social investments consistent with their mission by exempting these types of investments from restrictive, prudent investor rules. Currently, the law is not clear whether charities can make social investments. The amendments in the bill before us will specifically authorize charities to make such investments. It will give charities more flexibility and another tool to use their assets more effectively. This amendment in particular will position Ontario as a leader in facilitating social investing activities. I should note as well that there are a number of safeguards that will be imposed to maintain the public's trust and confidence in charities. As well, a number of amendments will be made to the Courts of Justice Act and the Justices of the Peace Act, including clarifying that people over the age of 64 may apply to become judges and justices of the peace, designating the Superior Court of Justice to manage complaints against the small claims court administrative judge, including giving the Superior Court of Justice the power to investigate complaints and, if appropriate, discipline the judge for his or her conduct. Making certain tribunal cost orders under the Canadian Free Trade Agreement enforceable as court orders. The change would preserve the ability of Ontario businesses and the Ontario government to challenge trade barriers in other provinces and territories. The Notaries Act will be amended to remove the requirement for a non-lawyer notary public to be a Canadian citizen. The Juries Act will also be amended to permit electronic options for jurors to return their jury eligibility questionnaires and to receive jury summons, and the deadline for returning a jury questionnaire will be extended from 5 to 30 days. The extension of time for jurors to respond to juror eligibility questionnaire was recommended by a committee composed of government and Indigenous officials, which was established in response to Justice Ekabuchi's independent review of the report on First Nations representations on Ontario juries. The committee did extensive consultation in Indigenous communities before making its recommendation. The Office of the Chief Justice, Superior Court of Justice, has no concerns about this proposal. Other technical and housekeeping amendments will be made to modernize outdated wording in French and English and to improve accessibility. From our partners at the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, there were a number of amendments. The Land Registration Reform Act will be amended to allow electronic registration of survey plans. Electronic submission and registration of plans will reduce the burden on land surveyors, saving mostly small business owners the time and the cost of converting their electronic files to hard copy plans and delivering those plans to the Land Registration Office. The Land Titles Act will be amended to allow for a single name to be used to register documents within the land registration system where that single name is permitted under the Vital Statistics Act and the Change of Name Act. The amendments to the Corporations Information Act and a number of other business law statutes will facilitate implementation of the new modern business registration system and ensure that related provisions are appropriately aligned, including modernizing service delivery and enable electronic access to all modern business registration system services, providing the Director with broadened duties and powers to support and implement more efficient and flexible service delivery under a new electronic system, making amendments to provide greater consistency across the business law statutes and enable future business law reform agenda. As well, the proposed amendments would enable the future proclamation of the Non-for-Profit Corporations Act, ONCA. I would also like to thank the Ontario Not-for-Profit Network and other stakeholders, such as the Ontario Bar Association, for their hard work in bringing forward these amendments. The proposed amendments to the Corporations Act would enable Ontario not-for-profit corporations to benefit from some of the ONCA features prior to its proclamation, such as allowing notice of members' meetings to be sent electronically and members' meetings to be held electronically. These proposed amendments would increase flexibility, encourage participation in meetings, provide clarity, and reduce burdens and costs for not-for-profit corporations. I would like to thank the Business Law Advisory Council for their recommendations to update and reform Ontario's corporate and commercial law statutes. The proposed amendments to the Business Corporations Act would increase shareholder democracy and increase flexibility in private corporations. The proposed amendments to the Arthur Wishart Act, Franchise Disclosure 2000, would increase clarity in Ontario's franchise law, including franchisor and disclosure obligations to prospective franchisees. The proposed amendments to the Personal Property Security Act would reduce costs to lenders, lessors, and repairers by providing greater certainty. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs proposed amendments to the Municipal Elections Act would provide clarity that compliance audit committees may deliberate in private for the purpose of making decisions. This is important so that they may speak freely when they review evidence and submissions. This amendment would provide more consistency across the province and may also prevent the use of stock written decisions that are prepared in advance due to the inability of compliance audit committee members to meet and speak in private. I should add that the issue has been raised by a number of municipalities following the release of the Ontario Ombudsman July 2016 report regarding his investigation of the City of Hamilton's Compliance Audit Committee. As well, the issue was raised by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO. AMO takes the position that a legislative change is required to address this issue. Our partners at the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change proposed amendments to the Pesticides Act that would transition the pesticide licensing program from paper-based to online service delivery. Licenses would be issued automatically online if prescribed requirements are met. This change would eliminate approximately 5,200 paper-based applications the Ministry receives each year, providing a faster, more efficient way to get a license. The proposed amendments to the Environmental Protection Act will allow the Ministry to make certain information about pesticide licenses publicly available online, supporting a transparent and open government. To respond to business needs while maintaining environmental protection, the Ministry is implementing an ongoing transformational agenda using a risk-based approach while reducing regulatory burden on businesses and enhancing program service delivery. From the Ministry of Agricultural, Food and Rural Affairs, the proposal is for the appointment of multiple vice chairs to the Normal Farm Practices and Protection Board. This amendment would increase the board's capacity to manage the hearing process, shorten wait times for hearings by alleviating the burden of only having 2 members capable of chairing a hearing. This will shorten wait times for decisions by alleviating the burden of only having 2 members capable of writing decisions. This is an answer to stakeholders' frustrations regarding both the length of time it takes to bring matters before the board to a resolution. Excuse me. The unifying reason behind all of these amendments is the fact that outdated, unnecessary, or unclear regulations and their compliance requirements can take businesses away from the important work that creates jobs and grows the economy and can cost billions in time and money to complete paperwork, fees, and expenses. The proposed legislative amendments that I just detailed are intended to improve economic efficiency and foster innovation, while continuing to provide strong social and environmental protections. The list of proposed amendments are at their heart about simplifying, streamlining, and creating more user-friendly services that will improve public protections by making it easier for businesses to understand and comply with requirements, as well as making it easier for ministries to focus on what's most important. Of course, the measures I just detailed are only some of the burden reduction activities the government is undertaking. There is a lot more that is being done in this area. As I mentioned, it is a key pillar of the Business Growth Initiative and as such has been a top priority for our ministry. At this point, I think it would be instructive to take a look at some of the other burden reduction efforts we have undertaken. We have committed to releasing an annual burden reduction report. The report profiles initiatives that are reducing burdens and making it easier for business and other stakeholders to succeed, including providing more online services, simplifying processes, and modernizing regulations. The latest annual report, released on June 27, 2017, features an estimated savings of $152 million and 6.5 million hours to business since 2011. This surpasses by more than 50% the government's targets of saving $100 million by the end of 2017. As a ministry, we also conducted Open for Business roundtables in 10 sectors and addressed 50 priority items, including reduction in length of WSIB No Lost Time Form 7, by 60%, standardized food premise inspection reporting food handler training programs, speeding up water taking permits for low-impact construction and road building projects, streamlining the number of permits required for development of residential subdivisions. We are also implementing measures under Ontario's regulatory policy to ensure new regulations are well developed and avoid imposing unnecessary costs on business. Tools and processes include regulatory impact analysis to ensure costs and benefits of significant regulations are understood before regulations are approved. Mandatory review policy to ensure outdated or redundant regulations with high impacts on businesses are regularly revisited and amended or eliminated if necessary. Twice annual effective dates to make Ontario's business climate more predictable by requiring new regulations affecting business to come into effect twice a year on January 1st and July 1st so businesses can plan ahead. Regulatory registry to make business regulations more transparent by allowing 45 days for comments on new regulatory proposals. In 2016, there were approximately 400,000 visitors to the site, 232 postings, including postings on regulatory proposals and discussion papers, and 1,054 comments received from the public. There are also a number of initiatives that Minister Duguid mentioned as well. Suffice to say, this government has a strong plan to root out unnecessary red tape and build a modern, responsive regulatory system that achieves outcomes while minimizing the impact on business. Excuse me. Mr. Speaker, this bill will be an important part of our ongoing efforts to make Ontario the best and easiest place in the world to do business. Our government has already been doing a fantastic job of this, and we look forward to continuing this great work. And this government continues to create jobs and create prosperity, while at the same time making sure that all Ontarians can share in that prosperity. Our highest priority is to make Ontario a place for businesses to invest and grow so that our children and our children's children will be able to have the best chance to live long and prosper. This bill will help us to create the high-quality jobs that will propel this province into the future. I would like to thank the government for introducing this bill, and I would like to thank all members for their attention today as I detailed some of the many highlights of this very important bill here this afternoon. Thank you, and I look forward to further debate.